Hey, welcome back to Two Ski Geeks. It's your boy Will Call. Hey, I think it's the next to the last Sunday of April. It is the 21st, I believe. And I saw you guys 2 weeks ago. And before we get going with all the stuff we needed to, before we get going with all the stuff with the topics of the day, please don't forget to like and subscribe to our channel. How about that? Not or, but and. But let's see here. Last time we were just bagging and boarding, and I was going through and showing you how to bag and board. So we're not going to do that today. In fact, most of my books are for the most part caught up with my bagging and boarding. And I'll probably do, I have a few for another show, and maybe I'll do that in 2 weeks. Maybe I'll keep that for like the first of the month. And then we'll, you know, bag and board on the first of the month and talk stuff, and then just go through things that I've gotten in the mail over the course of the month. I think I like that rhythm better. So um, this pile here to my right, your left, is what we're going to go through today. And but before we get started, because like I said, last time we started with brews, so this time still got my brew, and this time I will actually show you the bottle. And this is it, Boulevard from out of Kansas City, Missouri. This is a 10.2 glass quadruple, and it's very good. The last one I had was their Rye, and I suggested that to you because that was a 13.2. Now, as I said, the Rye, I gave that the Rye about a B minus, but this one I will give an A minus. Smoother. Of course, the alcohol content is less, but uh, it's not the not rye grain used to make beer and then aged in a rye whiskey cask, which was what the other one was. This one is just a straight quadruple, and quadruples are kind of be like heavy, kind of like wheat driven ales, and some the heavy wheat driven ales are usually smoother. And this with being at a quadruple, uh, the alcohol content is higher than other wheat driven beers. And of course, the origin for some of those would be like from out of Germany. They call them Weissens or Hefeweizen. Uh, so that's kind of like the source flavoring of this type beer with the quadruples. And also, Belgium, Germany, all those that area in the Bavarias, they have those type beers. And just a little bit of beer class, because I'm also a beer fanatic and some would say a beer snob, but if I'm gonna drink it, it's got to taste good. I'm not drinking beer just to say I'm drinking a beer. No, that's out. It's got to be good. Okay, so what I'm going to do today, I'm going to turn on the document cam. I had that last time, or I didn't use it the last time. I'm going to use it a little bit this time. Uh, I'll probably swap back and forth between the document cam and uh, and my face here, the face cam. But for now, I wanted to show you guys some artwork that I procured, comic book art, um, and it's pretty cool. This page here is out of one of the Batman Ra's al Ghul stories that Neil Adams did probably in the early 2000s. This is like a art that was actually going into the comic book. So they had the original art, the art page, or the because usually like art pages are usually much bigger. But this would be a conglomerate of all the art pages put together and how it's going to fit onto a comic book page. And so this is an original of a comic book conglomerate of pages. It's not very expensive. These are not too expensive, but it is an original. And I this is very cool, especially seeing as how this is artwork that Neil Adams, who he passed about a year and a half, almost 2 years ago. But this is some of his original work, and I'm just glad to have that. I wish I had gotten him. I wish I'd had this at a few of the shows before he passed, but it's too late. So I suggest, as I say all the time, with people, when I say to get these talking about different artists, it's good to get these artists while they're alive. Go to your comic book shows, especially some of these older guys. And I'll show you some other stuff today that I found while I was searching around on the comic book app, Key Collectors. Key Collectors is an app for your phone that you can download. This week, it was really cool about it was the fact that they were doing and highlighting heritage auctions. I guess there was a huge heritage auction sale recently on comic books, and what prompted me to really it kind of like energized me to do the show was this book here that they highlighted in heritage auctions. And I'm going to move this comic book art out of the way and put it back in its sleeve and out of the way and move it to the side because that's just one less thing. But anyway, this book here, uh, Nick Fury, Agent of Shield. This one, as I told you guys, I think I this is a book I showed you when I first started recording the show, probably within the first 5 shows. Uh, that I got graded by CBCS. And I picked this up, as I told you guys, I think in the last week's show, I mentioned Jim Steranko because Jim Steranko did that cover of that book, the little small pocket paperback book of the Shadow. I mean, Steranko was the artist on that. Well, he's the artist and the writer on this Nick Fury, Agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. And so going back to the Heritage auction piece, well, a 9.9, I think it was a 9.8 or 9.9, which is amazing that someone actually had one. This week sold for $52,000 within the last Heritage auction. Not maybe not this past week, but they were highlighting it this week in Key Collectors. So the last Heritage auction, I believe it was within the last week and a half they had an auction, because that was also the same time where an 8.5 graded Action Comics #1, the first appearance of Superman, sold for $6 million. Yeah. An 8.5. So yeah, for $6 million. And so I think there's only like one other book of Action Comics #1 that's higher grade. I think there's only like one 9.0. And I can't imagine what that was worth now. But anyway, this book here, 9.9 or 9.8 was sold for 52 grand. And so this book here, even though it's a 7.5, no, it will never sell that high. I don't believe. However, it will drive the value up of this book. So Key Collectors actually had this book listed at a value of about 370. I anticipate this will raise higher pretty soon after that 52 grand auction. Now, of course, when you look at between a 9.9 and 9.8 and whatever else, the values do degrade pretty severely and pretty quickly. But it will be that high value of a 52,000. It will affect this. It will not stay at the $300 mark. This should raise up pretty significantly if you're talking about 52 grand for 9.899. Anyway, so just wanted to show you that's one that was highlighted in Key Collectors this week. And so just going along with books that I found in the collection. This is my second copy of this Wolverine, the mini series Wolverine. It was his first mini series, came out in the early 80s. And like I've shown you this book as well in my and I also have a graded copy of a newsstand where you have the barcode is sitting here as opposed to Spider-Man's face. This would be this is your comic shop copy. But this like I said, this is my second copy, and I but this is a better copy that I purchased about 3 or 4 years ago, and it's in fantastic shape. I'm going to send this one off to be graded as well. And this was his first solo mini series story. And this book, even though this #1 book, there are plenty of them out there that are graded a lot. And even in a high grade, there's still probably quite a few of them. I didn't look up the statistics of them, but I do know there's many of them uh, of this book. But it is climbing in value. Over the last 3 or 4 years, it's probably crept up. It was pretty stagnant for a while, but it's probably crept up a good $300 to $500 in value since with probably since even 2020 when everyone was going comic book crazy and buying comic books by the buttload looking uh for sky high value in comics and people were investing. But this book has not lost its value at all. So if you can find it, I mean, you're going to pay up for it, but if you can find it, get it, and it's a good investment. It's rock solid. It will not come down. I promise you that. All right. Now we're talking about books from the X-Men. This is one that I have in triplicate. So, and what I bring this up because of course, Taylor Swift dropped a new album this past week. I heard about 30 songs on there. I'm not a huge fan, but you know what? I ain't hating on Taylor, and maybe she will play this character Dazzler. This came out, as you see, in X-Men number 130, and this was the first premiere of Dazzler in comic books. And if we'll see if Taylor Swift will play this character in the movies pretty soon. We'll see, of course, with her busy schedule and everything like that. We'll see what she's got going on, but we hope so. Um, and I brought this out because while I was digging through the collection, well, I already had this one out, uh, and I bought this years ago as well. This is a newsstand, as you see by the barcode. That this is a newsstand. And this is my best copy, I believe, of the newsstand, I believe. Or no, this is my worst copy because it's still in the old bag. But this is my best copy of it in a newsstand. I put it in Mylar. This bag is shinier and nicer. So yeah, this is my best newsstand copy. And then I have one more of, even though it has the barcode on it, but as you see, it has a line through it. So when they started pushing books through comic book stores as opposed to on the newsstand, and they started to differentiate between the two, this is how they began to differentiate, was by putting that little line through the barcode. So this was a local comic shop or comic book store copy, and the name is escaping me right now. But anyway, uh, this is one that would go a direct copy. They would call it a direct edition from the publisher directly to a local comic book store. It's called a direct edition. So that's how they would depict direct editions, was be that line through it, as opposed to like I showed you before with that Spider-Man emblem in the bottom corner. That was a direct edition as well, going directly to the comic book store on that Wolverine. And so, like I said, I was just going through the collection this week, and then I got lucky enough because I knew I had it, just couldn't find it. But went through the boxes, and this is Dazzler number one, and I knew I had this book somewhere around. And the crazy part about it is like when I bought it, and I put it in a new bag and board today before I started this show. But this was the price that I paid for. This is the old bag that it came in. I finally took it out of the old bag today and put a board on it. And it goes back to last week, 2 weeks show, the last show when we were talking about bagging and boarding. But this is the first, and that old bag was doing it no justice, so I took it out and put a new bag and board on it. And the current size bag and board does fit these books, as I explained to you in the last video. But so I have 3 copies of the first appearance of Dazzler and her first solo story, and that is a blessing because I can see this book and it is getting pricey. Yeah, high grades in 9.8 or so are close to about $1,000 now. So yeah, and we're talking about the direct copy edition. Um, we're not just talking about the newsstands, which tend to be a little more expensive and in higher demand than the than the direct editions, because uh, what happened is the fact that these newsstand editions typically would get beat up, even though this is primarily how books were sold, were from a newsstand back in the day. Even when I was a kid, go to the 7-Eleven or your local convenience store or drugstore, whatever, and get your comic books off the spinner racks, off those old spinner with, and kids would bend them up and jack them up or whatever. So the high quality value or high quality condition of those books is not really there. And so, because kids were beating them up on the newsstand. So, if you have a high quality newsstand edition, you have a rare book. It's easier to take care of a book that was directly going to a comic book store back in the day than your spinner rack. So, that's the difference between newsstand versus spinner rack, or a newsstand versus direct edition. I'm sorry. And so, last week we talked about Dave Stevens, and I said I'm showing you just a plethora of books over here. The pile is full, so I'm going to try to get through fast. This is one of the Dave Stevens books that's in high demand right now. Uh, Kind of hard to see it, so I'll do it this way on the webcam because the glare on the, which we'll call it, is kind of jacking up your view. So I'll do it this way. There we go. And so that's this is Cheval Noir #1. This is a much wanted Dave Stevens cover. I will have to get this one pressed out. There is a line down it. It's not a color breaking line, but there is a line where it needs to be pressed out on this cover. And maybe there's a printing color break here because this book probably came out in the late 80s, early 90s. And so the inking and papering was not of that high quality. And so there's a little break in like the way it was published or printed that's there. And there's a little one above it, and there's another one up here in the corner. But those are like manufacturing flaws, not in the quality of the book. There's no damage to the book. So it may get a 9.8, maybe, but we'll see. And as you see that little flaw in the top corner here, you can see that already. And you may be able, yep, you can see the little loss of color here on the spine that came along with manufacturing. So of course, it's not a 9.9 or 10. There are definite flaws in the book, but it may get a 9.8, but I'll probably gather after I get it pressed, it'll probably be maybe a 9.6. I'll keep my expectations between 9.4 to 9.6 on that book. Very valuable book as well, because Dave Stevens's artwork, as you can see with how he draws women or whatever that is, it's there. Those covers are in supreme demand right now. You will not find when you look for Dave Stevens books, and you can Google it up and say, look in DAVE, and it's STEVENS, Dave Stevens covers. Maybe a year ago, you could have gotten away with some cheaper finds. And there's one particular cover that I wish I pulled the trigger on about a year ago, because now it's just like I don't want it. I don't want to buy the damn book anymore because it's a beautiful cover, but it's priced out of where I feel comfortable paying for it. And it's not horrible, but it's just like, no, not now. So, especially because I didn't pull the trigger on it a while back. But anyway, here's another book I found when I was up in Frederick, Maryland, about a month or so ago. And this is Batman #200. It's a milestone edition, and a milestone edition. And I'm just really happy to have my favorite superhero, um, my first and earliest favorite superhero, Batman, in issue number 200. I'm looking to now get number 100, 300, 400, all different milestones. I believe I have 4 and 500 for sure, but 100 is going to be pricey. That I'll step up and pay for, not necessarily Dave Stevens' book. And number 300 for sure. But this one I'm going to get graded as well. So I'm going to add this to the graded pile of books over here. And then what I found was a second print of this Thrawn Alliance's book. And so Thrawn, and you can go back and look in the archives of this show. And I love this cover. It's just a great cover. And you see it here where it says it's a second print. And I think I can't remember if I showed you first print editions or not last week, but I bought two copies of this book. And why it's important to me is one, because second printings can sometimes become very valuable in competition with sometimes being even more valuable than the first print. So I bought two of them just in case. And two, I just love Thrawn. And then three, this Thrawn Alliances, you need to go get the novel. There are three books in the series of the Thrawn Alliances. There are three novel books. Forgive me. And there are three novel books in this, and that storyline gives a very detailed story of when Thrawn and Vader worked together. It spells out more detail from their first encounter, which was in the Thrawn. Um, oh man, the first trilogy of Thrawn books, which escapes me. Uh, it almost came. It came. It'll come to me. It was almost on the tip of my tongue, but when he was with the Chiss. It was called the name of the trilogy is called The Ascendancy, Thrawn, The Ascendancy. So when he was with his race of people, the blue skin color people called the Chiss. Well, in that series, Thrawn and Vader luckily it kind of like happenstance, luckily ran into each other in the middle of space somewhere. And it wasn't very detailed in the Ascendancy books. The details of that encounter was not very well told. But in this series, the second trilogy called Thrawn Alliances, it is very well detailed. That first encounter, as well as a newer encounter when Thrawn left the Chiss part of the galaxy and went to where the Empire's part of the galaxy, where they met, or Thrawn left the Chiss and joined the Empire. And so this is when uh, Thrawn works with Vader. Now, when he was with the Chiss, when they happened to luck and run into each other, it was Thrawn and Anakin. But in this one, it's in the alliances, it's Thrawn and Vader. Even though it's the same person, but you know, Vader considered himself not to be the same person. So the first meeting was Thrawn and Anakin, and then Thrawn and Vader. And Thrawn and Vader's story is this one. Sorry for the long drawn details, but uh, you got to understand the difference. And speaking of my man Thrawn, this statue, and I'm not going to pull it out the box, but I just received this within the last month as well. This Thrawn statue, and it's going to be in my office when I move, go to my new office and take my new job in June. This will be one of my office pieces. Uh, Thrawn is just the man, and in my opinion, that's in comic book lore is just a hero besides Batman. But Thrawn is a brilliant military tactician, and I love that character. Okay, next. I'm going to try to breeze through now. Ultimate Black Panther #2. This is the Boss Logic cover, and just a great cover. Especially, I love the blurred panther, like the panther's moving, and there was like a picture being taken. And even though he drew it, I just love the way he drew it. Like he drew it like a blurred in action picture. Then I've got Ultimate Black Panther #3, another Boss Logic cover. All righty. No, I'm gonna really start moving. But I'm going to talk about I'm going to preface these books. DC books. I tell you all the time, you need to start buying DC books. Uh, they are not being looked at so far as value. Some of them they are just extremely expensive, but some of the books that are undervalued right now, you may want to start getting them. To the example of this run right here, I'm going to try to finish the whole series here. This DC Legends of the DC Universe. So this is a series, I think it runs about 50 or 60 issues. I'm going to try to get them all. This one is about Superman. This is number 3. Turn that over. Then we got number 5 with Wonder Woman. And then I've got holes. I'm going to try to fill this though, so don't be mad because I don't. The sequence is broken, so I'm going to try to fill in the hole. So you see, I have a large hole to fill. This is number 22. Another Superman story. I have actually 3 copies of this book. So let's move on through. Then number 23, and I have 2 copies of it. 24. And this Dark Side. It went from Superman to Dark Side. Dark Side story. 25. Number 28. Green Lantern and the Atom. And this story right here, this Spectre story, uh, this one here was this one came out by the time when I first returned back to collecting comic books, in the early 2000s, or just before, maybe just before. But either way, this story here is so good. It is so well done. J.M. DeMatteis, as you can see on it, is the author, and he is known always for doing Spectre stories. He wrote the Spectre run in the 90s, and J.M. DeMatteis continues his brilliance in this with this several part story. I think it's like 3 parts to the story. And I'm not sure where I am in the storyline in this one. It's 1 of 4. As you can see, this is part 1 to 4. So this is a 4-part story, and this is an excellent read. And what makes it important is because the fact that at that time, when we're looking at the top line, Hal Jordan, the Spectre, at that time, Hal Jordan in the DC universe was dead. Uh, the Green Lantern, yes, Hal Jordan was not alive, and this is like how they brought this is how they brought him back, where Hal Jordan actually became the Spectre in the afterlife. And this is that story when Hal Jordan begins to come back into the DC universe. But he first comes back as the Spectre before he resumes the mantle of the Green Lantern and is reincarnated into a human body. But first, he was when he brought him back, the Spectre. Great story. Anyway, uh, legacies, DC Universe Legacies, number 1, number 2. Now, these are books that came out in the 2000s, and I didn't buy them when they came out. I'm shocked that I didn't, but I guess I was still as always buying too many doggone books, so I made a choice not to get it. Yeah, this is 2011. Just buying too many books. That's number 8, 9, and 10. These books I picked up from a local shop in Woodbridge, Virginia, called Gateway Comics. So again, thanks to you heard me mention Troy and his crew last time when we had the last show. Uh, but I bought these books from him, those DC Legends books and that Legacies book from him in that store. This book it introduces, and it's a solo story as well. This is another DC Legends of the Universe, but this is, like I said, this is a one-shot story. And what makes this story intriguing is the fact that this number one, Crisis on the Infinite Earths, is also a split off of the Crisis on Infinite Earths that Marv Wolfman and George Perez told in the 80s. Well, this was one of the universes that was, because what we, in the story behind Crisis is the fact that in trying to uh, make DC's stories make sense, they killed off a bunch of the Earths, therefore infinite Earths. But in the 80s, in order to try to make sense of all these different Earths that were created, probably in the 60s, they started coming with Earth 2, 3, whatever. Well, Crisis just got rid of and wiped out all these different Earths. This is a telling of one of the Earths where this is the first Black Superman story, uh, and pretty much an eclectic and diverse uh, heroes in the DC universe of color in the DC universe. This story right here, I now have 3 or 4 copies of this book, but this was actually the first Black Superman story, and this Earth where they were, where these folks were, the Justice League, they were wiped out and didn't make it due to, as I was saying, as I prefaced, all these different Earths were destroyed by the Anti-Monitor, and so this is one that didn't make it. And but this was the first. This one right here was the first story of the Black Superman. Now there were others that came later, and we've talked about those in other shows. You can probably look at the first within the first 2 or 3 shows of Two Ski Geeks, and you can find where I was talking about Black Superman. But I learned to correct myself in what I said back then, that this book that I just put away is the first Black Superman story, but he just didn't make it. I wonder how common that was back in the day. Horror movies. Anyway, like this cover. I just bought it because this Poison Ivy. I just like the cover. This is number 21. And then I also bought this one in because of the fact that if you're looking at X-Men 97, there's the story where Storm, when she loses her powers in the X-Men 97 cartoon, and this is how she got her powers back in working with Forge. So this right here is the first appearance of Forge, and I bought that one because that story between Storm and Forge is just a cool story, and I wanted to have it in my hands. Um, and I also wanted to have the first appearance of Forge. He's one of my favorite characters as well. Just a great character, and he and Storm and their romance together, and her getting her powers back is a great story to have. This was a story with Vandal Savage, one of my favorite villains. I wanted to have this one absolutely. There are not many stories with Vandal Savage. Vandal Savage is one of those, he is an immortal. He was a caveman, yes. Uh, he was a caveman that this meteorite, as it crashed to Earth, whatever, he was a caveman that encountered this meteorite, and it gave him the powers of immortality. So as people have tried to kill him over the years, they just can't. He always comes back. Uh, and so Vandal Savage was a character created probably in the early mid 40s. There are not a lot of stories about Vandal Savage, and I really wish there were. But he typically fights, and because of the age of the character, the Justice Society and the characters in All-Star Comics, such as the Spectre, the Golden Age Flash, as you see, uh, the uh, the Golden Age, Green Lantern, Alan Scott, and as you see, Jay Garrick, the Silver Age. I'm sorry, the Golden Age Flash, and who else? Like Our Man, the Sandman. those different characters from that time period, even Wonder Woman at one particular time. Uh, yeah, those are characters. If I didn't mention the Spectre, I think I did, but anyway, these are and Doctor Fate. So those are the characters that Vandal Savage typically squares off against in the Justice Society and All Star Comics from back in that time frame. And all those books, in particular that first Vandal Savage, as you said, as I said, it was born and he was came out in the 1940s. So it's not cheap. Just bottom line, first appearance of the Spectre, the Sandman, Our Man, you name it. First appearance of Golden Age, all those characters, Golden Age, Alice, Green Lantern. None of those books are cheap. Yeah, you're gonna call it that. That's a car. When you buy those books, you're buying a car. Uh, be it a cheap car or a very expensive car. That just puts you in the price range of what those books can be, and some of them even a house. Uh, that's how valuable those books are from the Golden Age DC books. Anyway, this is a second print of Batman 608. So this is the first appearance of the character Hush. Uh, he was Bruce Wayne's childhood friend called Tommy. I can't think of his last name, Tommy something, but he's a doctor. And Hush became a major adversary for Batman. And this is number 608. And this one can be a pricey book as well. This is my second copy of Batman 608, the second print. As I said before, this second print books can become more valuable sometimes than the first print. And this is one of those cases where the second print book, because they made less of them than the first print. And what is cool about it is Jim Lee, and he did a different pose on the book. It's not the same as the first book, as the first print. So, and the only other book that is more expensive than this one is called The Retailer, the RRP, The Retailer. I can't remember what the second R stands for, but it's an RRP, Retailer something. Uh, don't ask me, print, Retailer something print. But anyway, that's the only printing that is even more expensive and very hard to find and very valuable. This one's valuable enough, more valuable enough on itself. Fortunately, I got 50% off on this one, and the cover price on this is $250. So I got 50. They were doing a sale at Flashback. So yeah, I ended up paying for 125 for this. So and a little bit more with the discount as well. So I was blessed to find that one. And again, that's my second copy of it. I love this cover right here, this Spider Boy, this new character. But I just love this character. I love this cover. Just a very cool cover. And because it's so cool, I bought more than one. It's a new book. Just bought it because I cover love. That's all. There's a reason why I just straight up cover love. This is the metal variant of Batman number. Where is it? Oh, it's not on here because this is the version variant. But this is oh, I had the other one somewhere nearby. This is one of the latest covers of Batman, one of the latest editions on Batman. But it's, as you can see, the metal reflecting on it. Very valuable book as well. This one is probably run you close to 150 as well. And it's a new book, newish, probably within the last 3 months. But it's a virgin variant, and it is quite lovely and expensive, but I love it. And it's, of course, the Joker. Come on, man. I told you already that I love Batman. So, yeah. Then we have this one right here, this Harley Quinn cover, which is just as spooky as that Joker. This is number 37, but this cover by here by Fuyumata, I believe, is a Japanese artist, and he's been doing the covers on Detective Comics lately. But this one here of Harley is spectacular. I mean, just straight spectacular. I love this cover. Rick Fuyumata. Yeah, Rick Fuyumata. Fiumata. Gorgeous cover. just because it's spooky. And this is another Harley Quinn cover, and this is number 38, the one that comes after the issue. The one previous one I just showed is number 38 by Souza Maika. Souza Maika does a great picture, a great drawing of Harley, and like that one too. All right, these are books that they're going to go into somewhat. I'm trying to get ready to show you what I'm trying to. I've got a book on eBay that I want you know, for you guys to be aware, uh, and it's not cheap either. But if you want to just want to hype up my bid for this week, because it should come off of bid in about 3 or 4 days. But anyway, the writer on it is Robert Kirkman, and of course he's known for Walking Dead. Well, in the What If stories, if you looked into the Disney Channel for What If, the Marvel What If, and the first series was the Marvel Zombies, and Kirkman was the writer. No, oh, sorry, not Kirkman, but Mark Millar. Mark Millar was the first writer on the as he introduced the zombies, the Marvel Zombies, and but this is the variant cover of the first introduction of the Marvel Zombies in Ultimate Fantastic Four number 30. And please forgive my my misspeaking on the Robert Kirkman, but we're still talking about zombies because Robert Kirkman then did Marvel Zombies, the first first solo series called Marvel Zombies. Uh, he took this series that came out of the Ultimate Fantastic Four and then created a title called Marvel Zombies. And Robert Kirkman did those books. But anyway, and this is number 30, which is an homage cover to Fantastic Four number one. And then we've got number 31. It's also an homage cover. I can't remember to which issue. And this is also an homage cover, number 31. And this is a regular cover. This is a regular cover on number 32. I don't know why I brought that one out, because this is the zombified cover, which would be on Ultimate Fantastic Four. It was an homage cover to, I think it's Fantastic Four number 5, when they first introduced the Puppet Master. And so this is a great one to find. This is a great one to have too. And yeah, I love that one. So anyway, I said I had a book on eBay talking about the writer Kirkman, who did Marvel Zombies later on. So this is the book I have on eBay. It is Invincible, number one. Yes, from the cartoon that's on Amazon Prime right now. Uh, it is a 9.8, and I believe this is one of this I premiered this one on one of the earliest videos of Two Ski Geeks as well. I came when I sent it off and got it graded. Did an unboxing. It should be like a CBCS unboxing. I came back. I was very proud. Still am. Haven't sold it yet, but it's on sale, on bid, on eBay right now. And so what go in there and take a gander. If you put a bid in there, if you choose, that's how I'm going to try to start buying different books of older caliber. Because the book I really want is Detective Comics number 225, the first appearance of the Martian Manhunter, which is not cheap at all. So that's a few grand, quite a few grand. And so I'm going to use the sales of these books to buy my Martian Manhunter. And so this is number 2. I don't have it online yet for sale, but it will be soon. It's still a 9.8. Number 3, which is a 9.8. Again, all these last 3, these graded books will be on sale pretty soon. So if you want to hit me up in the comments, if you want to try to buy, let me know, but they'll be on eBay pretty soon. And this is a 9.6 on number 4. And then we've got a 9.2 on number 7. This is the first appearance of the Guardians. No, where is it? Where is it? Guardians of the Globe. Because I was about to say Galaxy. I knew that was Galaxy was not right. Guardians of the Globe, uh, which was the Kirkman universe spinoff of the Justice League. So the Guardians of the Globe, number 9.2 and number 7. And then we've got number 19, the first appearance of the Battle Cat. As you saw from the first series, I'm sorry, the first series of Invincible was the Battle Cat just whooped Invincible's behind thoroughly. So this is the first appearance of Battle Cat, and then we've got number 44, 9.4. This is a famous cover. Uh, this is this this woman here does some unpleasant things to Invincible in this comic book. Uh, very unpleasant things that will question his manhood. I'll say that much. So, but this is a valuable book to have, and it's just a really cool story that Kirkman tells. And then finally, on the Invincible tip, and I'm going to get ready to wrap this up pretty quickly. Uh, this Invincible 88 and 89. This was the this is a cameo of this character on the cover, who goes on to become Invincible, uh, and cover down for Invincible while he was away for Mark Grayson while he was away. So this is a cameo, and this is the first cover and full edition, full appearance, first full appearance of this character here when he filled in for Invincible. And so, all right. I think we are done almost, and I'll just two more things I want to show you, and then I'm out. These were some figures that I purchased from Todd McFarlane's store, uh, the Batman Zur in R, and one has a mask, and one is unmasked, and the unmasked is more valuable, as you see with the gold label in higher demand. But Batman Zur in R, when it was brought back, he first premiered uh, in the 1950s, and I'll put this up closer so you can see what Zur in R is, and how to spell it when you try to Google it. But the he came out in the 50s, but it was kind of like Batman was exploring space and ran into this character, this other character, Zur R or whatever. And it's a pricey book if you try to find it. But what makes it more relevant to today was when Grant Morrison retold this story with Batman Zur R in the 2000s. I believe it may have been probably like 2005 or 6. Grant Morrison told the story with this violent alter ego of Bruce Wayne, and who becomes Batman Zur R, this very violent version of Batman. And those you want to get. And those covers, if you can find those covers, they are pricey as well. Especially in a 9.8, it's probably about $400 or $500 for the first reappearance of Batman Zur R done by Grant Morrison. And so that makes today's show complete. I'm glad you joined me. I am way over time. I didn't think I was going to go that long, or I think I'm over time. I'm looking at my timer, but I hope you enjoyed the show. We covered new books, we covered figures, we covered all kinds of different things, and it was my absolute pleasure to join you. I love conversing comic books with you. For those who know me, and we are all comic book geeks for sure. from college through high school, whatever. It's always been one of the things I just been completely in love with the media of storytelling with comic books. And so again, I'm glad to share my love with you. And so last thing, when I was talking about that Dazzler book, uh, it's a $3 book. Do this for the love. Get books that you can identify with. As you saw me, that was a $3. It's not worth $3 anymore, but a $3 book that was just like in dollar. I don't even know if I paid $3 for it. In a dollar or $2 bin book, and just happened to find like, oh, Dazzler #1, and then happened to pick it up. Do this hobby for the love. I was at a comic book store recently, and someone was just trying to say, can you help me find books that will, become worth a lot of money? Well, it's always a gamble. Uh, you never know. This is worse than the stock market. You have to buy these books for the love. And of course, I'm buying, and I'm sitting in a room surrounded by comic books. I mean, literally, there are comic books all over this room. You just can't see them all. Uh, so you get what you love, and eventually, one of those things, or two of those things, three, depending on how much you buy, will and can become worth some money, or in high demand. So thank you for sharing your love and your time of love of this hobby with me, and it's my absolute pleasure to share with you. And that's why the common spirit with comic books, it's a deep-seated love, and no one's going to pry that away from me except death. And so, hey, by that time, it won't matter then, huh? So, uh, like and subscribe. We are so glad to have you with us. Stay tuned, ski geeked about comics, and we will holler at you soon. Peace.